All right, everyone. Welcome back to Opposite Conversations here with our buddy Chris. Today's guest, I met him a while back now. The time has flown by, man. I mean, since I met you, now you have a whole different build. It kind of looks the same. It's black. It's black and it has two doors and it's Honda-ish. So we met Chris back when he made some time for us to allow us to learn about his beautiful Mugen S2000. Authentic, everything extremely clean. And if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned something about like, hey, I might get rid of it, but I was like, I don't think you should. But then now I saw what you ended up getting, and I've been seeing your post about all the suspension upgrades and things that you do to this car. Then I'm like, I can see your vision now. So everyone, welcome, Mr. Chris. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Dude.
It's funny you mentioned that because I didn't realize how long it was. And thinking back, yeah, there was a few things. I don't remember mentioning, selling the car with you, but I've definitely mentioned that in the past, so it doesn't surprise me. And I was thinking, oh, I did do a few things that I wanted to do on that car before selling it. So that's kind of the biggest reason why I sold that. It was to a good point when I did the video with you. But after that, like I ended up getting a carbon fiber hardtop, authentic carbon hardtop, and a brand new hood actually, because the hood I had was deteriorating, the original hood. So those are two big things I ended up getting on that car. And after that, I mean, I just pretty much said, oh, it's got everything I did everything I wanted to do to it, and time to move on.
Yeah, you did mention it. We went to get some coffee afterwards and we had a lovely chat. And actually, it was you who said, hey, have you ever thought about doing like a podcast? So that way, you can get to know the owners from a different perspective. And I was like, it was you. You were the first one who mentioned that. And I was like, yeah, like I thought about it, but I don't know, man. It's just, not everything has to have a camera in front of it. And so here we go. Many moons later,
Yeah.
we're finally doing this. And so you did mention that you wanted to get rid of it, but not you weren't in a rush. And then you did mention an NSX as one of the possible cars that you were contemplating. I honestly thought you were going to get the older models with the pop-up headlights. Did you wanted this car to begin with?
So this actually is an older model. This is a 91. So this is a first year, but it's just been converted. So actually,
okay, I didn't. Okay, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. My entire life, I thought that the pop-up headlights were the old one, but okay, no, I am right? The pop-up headlights are the old.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you scared me. I was like,
yeah, the pop-up headlights were from 91 to 2001. So this is 91. This is the first year it was sold in the U.S. But it just has full 2002 to 2005 is when they had this look. Had this full conversion, the front end, the side skirts, the rear valence, and the sub spoiler, and all that stuff. So it looks completely like a 2002, like a facelifted version on the outside. So yeah, You're not crazy.
Oh, wow. But so that goes to show you. I have zero knowledge when it comes to the NSX because, they did a wonderful job. It doesn't look out of place. It did I didn't know that. That's
yeah. It's all OEM parts. They do make replica stuff, but luckily the person I bought it from, the conversion was done probably like 3 owners ago. But they all use all OEM parts, which is great. So everything fits perfectly and it looks OEM, so, I definitely, for me I bought late. So I bought, in 2020, I bought in December of 2020. The prices of these things came up a lot. So for me to actually get, 2002 to 2005, it would have been probably almost double what I paid for this one. Almost double. Wow. Not quite, but yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I didn't realize so much that type of market went up. And
yeah.
But you've spent so much money on this car already. Like just every little thing has been already with the suspension. You're like, mm-hmm. I see your post. You're like, I hate having my cars like this. And so you're swapping everything.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I could have, even kept my S2000 in stock form, or I could have gotten a nicer NSX, newer one. But I chose to, for me, I love to modify cars. Modifying cars is like huge. I can't drive a stock car. So I wanted to have a buffer of funds and able to not only modify it, but fix all the issues and all the maintenance. For me, maintenance is paramount. Like the way a car runs, it needs to run good, and I need to enjoy driving it before I can enjoy the rest of it, before I can enjoy modifying and having fun any other part of the car. So the first thing I did was, the car went on jack stands for like 3-4 months while I just refreshed as much as I could and fixed, as many oil leaks as I could. All the 1991 old car problems, slow window regulators, all that jazz, deteriorated rubber. So all of that I tried to get out of the way beforehand before I can start having fun with it.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'm like, well, it's an NSX. It shouldn't have that many issues, but then it's a 91, and then you realize, and depending on how many owners and whoever had it before, how they took care of it, and how many miles, I mean, all of that, now you get to, and then, of course, you're that type of builder that, wants to take care of maintenance first. Then you do that, and you've always been like that, or like your previous builds. You
I mean, the latest, the S2000 for sure. As you get older, your priorities change. When you're younger, in high school and early college age, you don't have as much money. You just want to go out and have fun. But when I get older, like it just became focusing. I want a car that I don't have to worry about. I'm a big. I worry about everything. So
you're like one less thing to worry about.
So I like to just hop in my cars and go. Not have to worry about warming it up or what have you. Not being able to drive it because of this or because of that. So it just became a thing. With the S2000, I didn't have that much of an issue because I actually bought that pretty new. I bought that car when it had only 9,000 miles on it. Wow. And so I was able to, take care of it all of its life, and it was in a great shape when I sold it. This car, getting into it, I got into it with 126,000 miles on it. And so, it's a lot of miles for someone else to be taking care of the car and me to not know what went on. There were maintenance records and stuff, but I mean, there's still a lot of items that needed attention when I got my hands on it. So fortunately, the people prior to me, they did some major maintenance and stuff like that, which I'm thankful for, but I had to tackle quite a bit too.
Well, I think the NSX is probably in the best hands of anybody I can think of. So that's going to be the next phase for that car, and that's cool. So we'll get back to this car because I think there's so much backstory to this car, and I want to get to know a little bit about how we got to this point. But let's take a step back, man. Like, where were you born? How were you in school? And and why stick with freaking Hondas, dude?
Well, I think that's the last one's a funny story, interesting story, which I like to tell. But I was born in San Diego. I'm 37 years old right now. I was born and raised in San Diego, in the Claremont area. So I spent my time in that area growing up through all the way up through elementary school. Then I ended up moving up North County, not too far north, but to Del Mar area. Okay. So I ended up going to junior high and high school up in Del Mar. And then
what high school did you go to?
Torrey Pines High School.
Torrey Pines, okay.
Yeah. So
and were you into school? Were you into sports?
Yeah. I mean, I was all, I did pretty well throughout school. I graduated with a really pretty decent GPA, above,
you were
above. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was good, but so I actually graduated with a really great GPA.
Honors, principal role, everything.
You're right. I took AP classes and all that jazz and honors classes. Ended up just going to UCI though. So where the
hold on. Okay, for those that may not know, UCI is a big university. It's part of the UC system in California. Yeah. It sounds like, I just ended up going to a community. No. Like you got into the UCI That's a very
Yeah, yeah.
difficult. That's a very difficult
Yeah.
to
Well,
get
yeah,
into.
I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it
Okay,
like that. I
just
mean, yeah,
for some
yeah,
that may not know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would have been, you know, there's a ranking. I don't know how the ranking is now, but back when in 2002 when I got in, UCI was decent. It was middle. It was probably middle of the pack. Whereas you know, UC Berkeley, UCLA,
UCLA, blah blah
those are the
blah.
ones
Yeah.
everyone wants to go to.
Mhm.
UCSD even. You know, I didn't. I would have stayed in San Diego if I had gotten to UCSD, but I didn't get in.
What was your major?
So that's the thing. I was undeclared because,
Ooh.
and that's kind of what led me to say, you know, I got an UCI like that because it's not that the school's bad, the school's great, but it's my failure of not knowing what I wanted to do. I went in undeclared, but I wanted to go towards like engineering kind of side,
Mhm.
and just because I was in the heavily in the cars at that point. And you know, I was interested in kind of like drafting, kind of engineering, but I'm more of the way my brain works. I'm more of a, you know, how there's the artistic side versus the mathematical side. I'm not the mathematical side, so I enjoyed like drawing up, drafting, and stuff like that. But engineering and trying to do engineering at UC level, it's nuts. I mean, no way I could handle the calculus and all that.
Mhm.
So I didn't even make it very far in that, and ended up just dropping that. And so just taking the easy way out, getting an easy major. But so that's where it ended up, you know, and I ended up just in school just to get the degree at that point, which is kind of sad. But
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I mean. I kind of want to touch base on some points that you mentioned. Like you said, like your failure to do some research. I think part of it. Are you a first generation college student?
No, no, I'm not. Second generation, but you know, for whatever reason, I don't want to put blame on too many people. You know, ultimately the blame would be on myself,
Right.
not doing you know enough research into what options you have. You know, similar to one of the other guys you interviewed. You know, if I were to do, you know, if I were to redo, if I were to speak to myself, you know, my high school self when he's applying to colleges, I would say, hey, you know, really, I would talk to myself and figure out what I really want to do and see what applies and understand that, you know, there's no other really majors that you can do at UCI. Maybe you want to go to like a state college or a community college or get some kind of practical degree or experience that will apply to something that you want to do. You know, maybe maybe I want to maybe go towards being a mechanic or something like that. But you know, I definitely I wouldn't say I want to be a mechanic right now because I'm happy where I ended up right now in my career ultimately. But you know, just as an example, you know, I wouldn't have. It's hard to say at the same time because you know, like I met my wife at UCI. I met lots of friends at UCI. I ultimately got on my career path through UCI through other means, you know, the people I met there and other avenues. So there's a lot of what ifs, but you know, there's a lot of things I could have said, I could have done, could have, would have, should have about my degree itself.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now.
Well, yeah, that's the reason why I was bringing that up. I mean, like you're mentioning right now, if I could have talked to myself, you were also in high school, man. Like, there's so much stuff that we don't understand. And even to this day, I don't understand. And I don't know. I mean, correctly, but the pressure maybe on unspoken or maybe very vocal pressure from family. You're taking AP classes. There's this expectation. So you know, the natural state is to go to a big university.
Definitely.
I mean, if that was that something that you were kind of battling with?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, definitely everyone wants to get into the best, you know, when the state of mind that I'm coming up in, a lot of my peers were in high school is, you know, hey, you just want to get into the best school you can. You know, your parents would be super proud if you got into, you know, a Ivy League school or something like that, right? Whether you can afford it or not, or whatever degree you can get there, whatever you would pursue, you know, every generation in your family would be super happy, you know. So that kind of the mindset is definitely, you know, what I was in coming up. You know, get into the do as good as you can in school, get in the best school you can. You know, obviously I applied to all the UCs, well, not all of them, but you know, all the top ones at least, and then you know, and then go from there. So I didn't put much thought into it past that, you know, which I should have done, you know, is actually look into what degrees, you know, various schools have, what would be my top 3, you know, that I would go after and so forth. What would be a backup plan, you know, things like that. It just ended up not occurring to me at that point, which I wish I had better guidance on, you know.
Okay, well, that's important for you to understand that sometimes we lack those resources or guidance, and so. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of amazing stuff came out of the UCI, and so when you're in high school, you're obviously trying to get to school and things of that nature. Like the car bug already started for you, right? And so, what becomes your first car?
Oh, so okay, so yeah, that's the interesting thing. So my first car was a 1996, a green 1996 Acura Integra. Okay. So that's what started me off on Integras.
Now, what year were you in high school? Because that doesn't sound too bad.
Well, I was in high school in, when was I? 1999 / 2000, I think.
That's a semi-new car.
Yeah, because I graduated 2002.
That's a semi-new car,
it's decently
dude.
new.
Wow.
It's decently new. It was a 96. It was a 96 with like 83,000 miles on it. I think it cost like $12,000. Yeah, I'm very thankful, you know, that my parents obviously bought it for me. I'm lucky that I was afforded that option. The funny story is like how, you know, you mentioned before, like, how do you end up in the Hondas, you know? I think that's the most interesting story, because back then, like when I was shopping and I was interested in cars, 13 years old, 14 years old, and thinking, hey, I'm going to get my permit at 15. And what kind of car am I interested in? I didn't really have any idea, you know. I didn't know. Wasn't super into Hondas. I wasn't a Honda fanboy back then. I knew what a Civic was. I knew what, you know, bigger. I knew what there were some fast cars out there like a Supra or NSX or something like that. But you know, those were out of my league. So when you pop open the paper auto trader, you know, it's like, what are you looking for? My dad, and then you know, I'm searching. I was just originally searching for Civics because that's all I knew. And then I also was looking at, so it's based on however the car looked, if it looked kind of cool, you know. So I ended up looking at Civics, and for whatever reason, nothing caught my eye. And then I ended up looking at Celicas, the round eye Celicas, kind of like the Integra, right? It had around 4 circles at the front. And then at that point, I think I didn't find anything good. And then my dad was like, "Why don't you check out this car? It's an Integra." I was like, "Oh, okay." Checked it out, and then we just ended up on that path. My dad was a big car guy, so he kind of led the path on you know, finding something that looked good, and you know, as far as spec wise, you know, what we're getting for our money, performance. Obviously, we want a manual transmission, so ended up with Integra just because my dad said, "Hey, why don't you check? Does this car look good to you?" And then that's that. I mean, I've had like 6 Integras, I think, at this point. So, awesome. and you know, and the S2000 and NSX, and I just became obviously a Honda fanboy. So it's funny because like if I ended up with like a Celica or something like that, you know, maybe I would have been on like a Toyota path where I would have gotten maybe like MR2, you know, turbo, SW20, and then maybe my pinnacle Toyota would have been a Supra, you know, or even, you know, it's funny how that ended up working out. I always laugh at that.
So what kind of cars were your dad into? Your dad?
So my dad was born in San Francisco.
Oh.
And he grew up in the 60s. So, you know, what cars were cool in the 60s are muscle cars. So my dad grew up on muscle cars. And he's always been in the cars just because my grandfather, his father, has been in the cars. So, you know, he's had various, he's not like, you know, back in the day, well, I guess some people are brand fanboys, but he jumped from, you know, brand to brand, from Chevy to Porsche to Mazda, to Nissan, had a 300 Z32 for a while, and then like now he has a Pontiac, So I mean, he's really he's the person that got me into cars to begin with, for sure, from a young age.
Oh, that's super cool, man. Because then he understood that you wanted something fun instead of getting you an automatic, I don't know, Camry.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, but at least, yeah, okay. And that's a semi-new car, so pretty cool. I mean, you're a big stuff, man. That's a nice car.
No, yeah. I mean, he was my dad was definitely being a car guy. Like, he taught me how to drive in his manual 1990 Z32 300ZX. So I mean, I was driving around like Mission Bay, like around SeaWorld area, in those big old parking lots, driving around where they launched the boats in Mission Bay. They got those big parking lots. So I would be driving around manual. I was driving around at like 12, 13 years old, trying to learn manual, and then I was lucky enough to actually get my car and by get my GSR, there's Integra GSR, for the my driving test. So I actually drove that in the driving test, manual transmission, so I'm it was a whole upbringing from my dad, it got me into this.
So what happened to that first car?
So the
I don't like that laugh, Chris. I don't like that.
Yeah. The first two Integras got totaled. The first one, only my dad knows this, actually.
You don't have to share. You don't have to share.
Okay. I won't share. How it got totaled. Yeah, it's
youngster doing too much.
Young person being stupid, right? So a GSR in the hands of a young person is not smart.
Well, so it's funny because I was listening to another podcast with Sticky Diljo, and he interviewed somebody who saved so much money. He's like 19, 20 at the time. He saves so much money. Goes and buys an air-cooled Porsche, owns slicks, and then he drives it home, and it's a little bit wet outside, and he's still like gunning it. The night that he was driving it back home, he crashed. So it's just part of, you have to learn. It's sad. Yeah. It sucks, but that's going to happen. And so, how many years did you own that GSR for?
So the first car, I crashed it at fault, and I owned it for, I don't even know. I don't even know if I had it for a year. I don't remember.
Oh, so you were still in high school then?
Yeah. I was still in high school, for sure. Gotcha. I might have had it for a year, definitely less than 2 years. And then I got another GSR, older one, higher mileage. That was a whole fiasco. Like, my parents were pissed at me. So I had like a lot, I basically had the insurance money from the first car minus thousands as punishment in order to get another car. I ended up with another car. And that one got rear-ended. I actually got sandwiched. I got rear-ended by like a rear RV.
Oh goodness.
So he pushed me into the front car too. So both ends were damaged. That car got totaled.
How long did you own that one for?
That one, less than a year, for sure. Yeah.
Wow. So between, that's a lot to go through. I mean, you're still in high school.
Yeah. So I think I was on my third Integra definitely by graduation. So,
wait, so you stuck with the Integra back? Were you doing mods? Were you modding the cars?
I mean, not really. I mean, with a high school budget, like, it might look like, I had tons of money getting, but, I spent like tons of money on hyper white, bulbs, which was cool back in the day.
Well, whatever you can afford, yeah.
I remember I spent, they were $20 a pop for a pair of hyper white headlight bulbs and headlight bulbs for $20. And I blew out so many of them because I didn't realize you can't get your finger oil on the bulbs and stuff like that. You're supposed to use gloves. And I went through tons of those, hyper white turn signal bulbs, colored emblems. I used to go to Modern Image and get the window visor up the top, window visor. Probably the most I ever spent was on an exhaust system. Back in the day, I ended up getting My first exhaust was like a Apex N1 um, axle back, or not axle, but even just a muffler that I had to go to a custom shop and get custom welded on, and then that got smashed in one of the accidents, and so I ended up with um, a Greddy exhaust back in the day, which was pretty cheap. I think it was like, it's not how much it was. I think it was like only 450 bucks or something like that. But I mean, I saved up, and I was working. You know, I've been working ever since I was 15 years old. So you know, I had just to get gas money and mod money. So.
And when were you getting? Where was the place that you were getting all this motivation? Were you? I mean, was
Oh
JDM
yeah.
a thing or what?
Yeah. That's an interesting story too. I mean, I definitely got some motivation from my dad, you know.
Mhm.
So my dad, you know, he's not only into cars, loves to modify cars.
Mhm.
You know, that's where I get that from. So I mean, like on his 300ZX, I was young. I mean, when he got that, I was like probably 12, 11, 12-ish, something like that. And he was already, you know, lowering it. He's putting on NK wheels. He had a Greddy exhaust on it. You know, and that's not the first car he's modified. He modified like every one of his cars he's ever owned since he was 15, 16. But so I got some from him, you know, and then the other part of it, the other crucial part is, you know, your peers, right? So like when I entered into high school as a freshman, I ended up getting in with this group where this kind of well-off group of guys. They were seniors at the time, but I mean they had like full-on show cars at that point. You know, this is back in 2000, 2000-ish. So, oh shoot, hold on, hit the light. Um, so this is like Fast and Furious was big body kits was in full force. So, I mean, they had the full-on body kits. You had turbo. These are Integras, Del Sols, like Preludes, Accords, full body kits, full paint jobs, turbo kits on them. You know, I got the 17-inch wheels, the exhaust, the works. You know,
Mhm.
that's just something like this stuff you see in car shows. I mean, they were show cars. They did show them. So seeing those guys, and you know, they were hanging out with pretty girls and stuff like that, and it's like you're really impressionable as a young guy, and so it's like, wow, you know, these guys are really cool. You know, and so that's kind of like, you know, that along with the magazine scene is really big, the car show scene in San Diego, the import show off and all that, hot import nights, all of that made a huge impression on me growing up. And so that's kind of, you know, that's kind of what got me in, you know, bit with the mod bug. So
That's crazy, man. That's cool to understand. Like, and I like the fact that you're honest. You're like, you know, there was a set of people that were well off. Maybe, you know, you were still working and you had to pay your gas and things like that. You were modding, but you're still on a high school budget. So that's cool. So then you get through your third Integra. What happened to the third Integra?
the third Integra is the one I owned the longest. So I owned that through college. I probably owned that. When did I sell that?
Was that the
Oh
red coupe?
yeah. No. The red
Oh, it's
coupe was
another one.
the
Oh
red
my
coupe was
god.
this is before.
This guy's
Yes. So I owned this one. I owned this one the longest, probably like 2010. I sold it in 2010.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I had that one for like 8+ years. Um, so
So what
2009, 2010.
so
So
what made
that one went through a the most changes. Go ahead.
what made you like step away from it?
That one in particular, or Integras in general?
Well, that one in particular, because you still get another one. So that one in particular.
Yeah, I was looking to buy a house with the wife, with the at the time girlfriend.
Wow. So that
Yeah,
was like
yeah,
all these life changes, you know,
yeah,
school
yeah.
and all the. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So yeah, that's a good
Right.
reason. Yeah, that's a great reason.
Yeah, I need a down payment, so.
You get rid of
Thinking.
that, and then you're driving a what, regular car?
I had the S2000 at the same time, so.
Wait. So how did that 2000 come up? You just like.
Yeah. The S2000 came in because, you know, at that point I had the Integra for a long time. You know, like I said, 7, 8 years, 8+ years. And so, you know, I was looking to get something fresh. And the S2000. So I got the S2000 around 2008. So a couple of years before I sold that Integra. So that was kind of like my new baby at the time too. So that kind of made it easier to let go of the Integra as well, you know. So it was basically just had some money in Integra that I needed to liquidate, you know, in order to get down payment money.
And what year was this? 2000?
The S2000 was a 2004.
Okay, so 4 years, so still, you know, reasonably new. Why the S? What is it that attracted you to that platform?
So the S, I kind of mentioned that in our last interview. It's basically the next tier up, right? It's like, I mean, besides the Integra Type R, which I would have loved to have and still have never had one. You know, Integra Type R's were still expensive at that time too, and still like a theft magnet, like any Integra is. So, you know, the next tier up Honda for me is, you know, S2000 and NSX. So that's kind of a big pain point, you know, especially just getting the NSX now is like, I could have afforded just for probably a little bit more, or maybe even around the same price I got the S2000, plus or minus, you know, plus, you know, 5K or so. I could have got this exact NSX back in the day, same mileage, same year, for that price. But now, you know, it would cost me way more. So that was kind of a, I don't want to say regret, because I did have a good time with S2000. You know, I built that car for 13 years, owned it for 13 glorious years. You know, I had fun. I did everything I wanted to do with it. So I can't say I regret it. But it was the next step, you know, just like the NSX was the next step from the S2000.
So then, like, throughout this whole entire thing, the S2000, it seems like that was now the first super exotic car that you've owned. You went like super. Was it always that clean, or did you like? Are you always been that meticulously clean with your cars?
I tried to be. I appreciate the compliment. When I got it, it was completely stock. So I got it as a 2004 model. I got it in 2007 with 9,000 miles on it. So it's, you know, fairly new. Yeah. It was basically brand new. I bought it from, are you familiar with Leisure World? It's close by to you. It's in Seal Beach area. So Leisure World is a retirement community. So there's, you know, it's old people there, right? So I bought it from a gentleman, like 75-year-old gentleman, who it was sitting there under a car cover. Battery was dead. He's like, I bought it for my son, but my son just got a kid, his adult son, you know, and his adult son just had a baby. And so he's like, my adult son didn't want it because it's a 2-seater. So he's like, so now I got to sell it. And he couldn't even get into it because he's so old, you know. He was a rather tall, he's kind of tall too, a tall, older gentleman who could barely get in the car. You know, it's hard to get in those cars, they're small. And so he didn't even drive it. The battery was dead and everything. And so he put it on Auto Trader. I said, hey, this looks really good. And so that's how that ended up, you know. I just, it was a pretty decent pickup. Okay.
So then you own the S2000. Do you start modding it right away, or do you leave it alone?
Yeah. So my whole reason, one of the things I was looking forward to actually was tracking the S2000. Funny enough, through UCI, I actually got heavily into tracking my Integras, because I was kind of was in the UCI car club, and I was in there the first year it started, and those guys introduced me to the world of tracking. I didn't even know it was a thing. Coming from San Diego, there's no racetracks down in San Diego. There was only like a 8-mile drag strip at the stadium. So I had no idea that people went around race on circuits out here in Orange County, LA. And so those guys really got me into it. I went out my first time as a passenger and I got hooked. And so I started tracking my Integra. I think we used to track at least once a quarter at the car club. And so when I got in my S2000, my whole purpose was, okay, this is a rear-wheel drive car. It should be more, a lot more enjoyable around the track. So, like my first mods were wheels, tires, suspension, and roll bar. Kind of prepping it for the track. And then only like, once I showed up with the car at work, so at that time I was working for Greddy.
What?
And
Huh.
then
So you gotta tell us
Kenji,
about that story too, because
yeah,
that's so
yeah, I'll tell you
random.
about that. I'll
You're
tell you about that.
UCI, and then also okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
So everyone knows Greddy Kenji now. So Kenji is like, back then he was head of R&D, and he's like, "Hey, are we gonna prototype a turbo kit on your car or what?" And I was like, "Oh shoot, I didn't even realize that we needed a car at that time to prototype a turbo kit. We had done an AP1 first, and then we needed, so there's three generations of S2000. We'd done the AP1 first. We needed to do the throttle cable S2000 next, which was my 04, 05. And then after that, there's the drive-by-wire S2000. So he was like, "We're gonna do that S2000 or what?" And it's free parts, it's free turbo kit, man. So you can't say no to that, right? And so of course said yes. I actually worked on my car myself. I was in R&D at that time. And then I just had fun with the turbo kit. It was Greddy's carb legal turbo kit. It's not a high horsepower turbo kit or anything like that. So it made like 280 to 300 wheels to the full horsepower to the wheels.
That's still a lot, sir.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Yeah, no doubt. It was fun. But then I kind of like killed my track goals too. So the kit was not really meant for the circuit. It's more of like a street kit. So I ended up only tracking the car one time. I think it was after I took the turbo kit off, funny enough. And then so that's the long story short about that. I mean, I had every intention to just have fun at the track, but one thing after another, turbo kit. So turbo kit happened maybe like 6 months after my ownership, within 6 months. And then development time plus ownership time of the turbo kit. Probably by the second or third year is when I finally took it off. After second or third year of ownership of that car is when I took the turbo kit off. At that time, I've always been loved aesthetics more than power. I never really, power is cool, but Hondas aren't really huge on power anyway. So I love how they look. So I ended up focusing on looks of the car, and I've just snowballed into where my S2000 ended up when you saw it. And that's just how that build went.
So you didn't get hooked on the once you go boost, you never go back.
No. I know there's tons of people like that. Once they go boost, that's just a stepping stone to a bigger turbo and more power. But I've always loved high revving Hondas. So that turbo kit on the Greddy turbo kit for the S2000, it's a T518Z, T517 or T518, I can't remember, but it was a smallish turbo. And so it had a lot of mid-range, low to mid-range power and torque. It kind of ran out of steam. It felt like it ran out of steam up top. So actually, it felt the opposite of how a normally aspirated Honda felt. Whereas you got to rev out a normally aspirated Honda, and that's the fun part. Hearing VTEC kick in and feeling the rush of extra power. With the turbo kit, it was the exact opposite. Torque and boost came on really quick, and it just kind of felt like it petered out at the top end. So and again, because I put the turbo kit on early in my S2000 life ownership, I didn't really get to experience the NA engine that much. So I had no problem taking the turbo kit off and then just enjoying the car how Honda intended.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so you're a UCI. You changed majors. You're like, engineering is a little too difficult for me. What do you go for, or how do you end up at Greddy?
I mean, let's just say it's not a degree that really holds any matters anywhere. But I'll say that one of the reasons why I chose that, and this will segue into how I ended up at Greddy, is I was really into the car club. I was really active in the car club. By that time, I was one of the cabinet members of the car club, and we were doing internships. So one of the internships I did was for Extreme Dimensions, a body kit company. They used to be It used to be headquartered right near the airport off of MacArthur, in here in Orange County. So I interned for them for a little bit. I got a taste of that. I said, you know, that looks fun. The internship itself was pretty crappy. I ended up, you know, they're trying to sell it as, you know, what any internship should be, is a learning experience and getting you ready for the workplace. But they just wanted someone to do busy work, file
Free
papers
labor.
and all that stuff. Yeah, free labor. So I quit that. I quit that over voicemail. and
Nice,
I ended up,
classy.
yeah, classy. You know, when you're young, you don't know what you're doing.
Hey, boss, I'm not coming in.
So I ended up doing my full internship, but I ended up extending it just because I wanted to get some more experience, but then I got over it. And then that's what made me quit. So how I ended up at Greddy is they ended up wanting a part-timer in their warehouse. So I ended up saying, okay, you know, I'm in school, you know, I'm in college, so I'm not doing schoolwork all the time. I have some free time and I need some money. So I applied for the part-time gig in the warehouse. I ended up working in the warehouse, like pulling heavy ass exhaust systems off of third level shelves. And I was thinking, oh, this is great. You know, Greddy was, I mean, it was big time back. This was 2004-ish when I got that part-time gig. And Greddy was making big sales. I mean, we were doing like 40-foot, like filling up like 2 40-foot containers full of exhaust systems every day. And so I was like, oh, this is great. You know, I got to hear they were doing dyno, you know, tuning cars, twin turbo 350Zs, you know, 240SXs, cool cars were coming in every day, developing cool parts. I was seeing, you know, models would come in every once in a while. It was a really, really awesome gig. And me being really, you know, a young guy at that time, I was like, hey, this is awesome. And I asked them, so I graduated college 2 years later in 2006. And I was like, hey, do you guys have any full-time jobs? Like, you know, I want to come on full-time. I'm graduating school. And so Kenji offered me a job position in the R&D, in research and development side of things, which was like test fitting exhaust systems. You know, they were prototyping turbo case exhaust systems, all that stuff. And anything Greddy product related, you know, doing technical calls, tech support over the phone. And so, you know, that's how I ended up there. And that was a really good experience. Met a lot of really cool people. And, you know, that just, you know, I ended up thinking that, kind of naively thinking that I could be there long term. But a lot of people in the industry will know that it's hard to do that. You know, a lot of people on the outside will think that like big names like Greddy or whoever it may be, Sparco or whoever, Apex, that they're like thousands of people big company, like, you know, a huge company, but they're not. You know, it's a small company, and so there's only so much room for movement. And so, you know, that ended up just being a stepping stone for me in my career, my automotive career. But you know, no regrets at all. I mean, it was awesome, but it's just college wise, like when I thought about, you know, when I got that unsaid degree that didn't really do anything for me, I was like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because, you know, I can just take this path through Greddy, wherever that may lead me, and I can be happy, you know, looking at modified cars for the rest of my life and doing something with modified cars for the rest of my life. You know, that was very naive of me, you know, but again, no regrets. I'm super happy where I ended up now.
Yeah, man. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be where you're at now. I mean, those are life lessons.
I think everything happens for a reason, you know?
Oh yeah. At the moment you're like, why is this happening? And I think I understand a little bit what you're saying regarding movement and how big a company is, and then, you know, just personalities and relationships. So how long did you work at Greddy for? How many years?
So I worked at Greddy for 4 to 5 years. And then I moved on to Kia Motors America, which is also here in Irvine. So it's Kia Motors, the corporate office. And so, I got that job because I met someone through Greddy. I met one of the guys on the Acura TL forums, on Acura Zine. He wanted to get a Greddy exhaust, custom batch made for the TL guys, which wasn't an exhaust that we were making at the time because it's kind of a smaller crowd, right? It's not a Civic or Integra or something. So we ended up making that for them, doing, I don't know, like a 20 unit batch or something like that. And he worked at Kia Motors. So he ended up getting me in at Kia Motors. I worked there for 2 to 3-ish years, depends on what you consider Kia Motors. They kind of did the switcheroo thing with us. They transferred us over to this company called Mobis Parts America, which is the tier 1 parts supplier to Hyundai and Kia. So it's kind of like Denso to Toyota. Mobis is the Hyundai and Kia. So I ended up in the Hyundai Kia group until around 2013. And then I moved over to Mitsubishi Electric Automotive America, who does like remanufactured rotating electrical. So that's alternators and starters, distributors, things like that. Worked there for a few years and they ended up closing their doors. So no fault of any of us, but they closed their doors. And so, I ended up moving over to the sister company of Mitsubishi Electric. Has a ton of companies. They're a huge group. So they're not only in automotive side, but they do elevators. So I ended up working in the elevator side. It was not, it's not automotive, not where I necessarily wanted to go, but it was kind of like a last ditch way to get out. Cause we were gonna, I was pretty sure I was gonna get laid off. I was kind of lowest man on the totem pole. So my boss kind of helped me out and, I got a easy transition over to the sister company in elevators. Did a couple of years there and I couldn't handle elevators, just zero interest on my side. And then, again, all things are meant happen for a reason, right? One of my coworkers from Mobis back in like 2012, 2013, she is a manager at my current company and said, "Hey, we got an opening here. Why don't you apply?" And so that's where I ended up. I'm at Cox Automotive right now, who a lot of people don't know who Cox is. It's the same Cox family that does internet. But they have an automotive side which is pretty big. They own like Mannheim Auto Auctions, Kelley Blue Book, Auto Trader. So essentially I work for Kelley Blue Book right now.
that sounds cool to say. I work for KBB.
Yeah. So I mean, again, like everything, multiple jobs I got from knowing people from previous jobs, and the current job that I'm at right now, it quite literally takes something from every one of my previous positions, and I use it like every day at what I'm doing right now. So that's why I say I'm very happy right now. I feel like the job that I'm doing right now is almost meant for me. So I'm happy.
Oh, I'm glad, man. That's the most important thing, because I wanted to touch base on how was that like. Now you look back and you're like, well, it's working out. I enjoy what I do, and it's cool. But how was that during the moment that when you're at Greddy? I guess I would say towards the end of the tenure there, and then until you start working for those dealers. Did you ever had in your mind like, this is not working out? Like, should I go back to school, or like, how was that kind of conversation with yourself? Because you're a UC grad. I mean, and it's cool to have fun cars, but at the same time, it's like you're going from one job and it closes, and you're like, I gotta go somewhere else. And stuff. How was that conversation with yourself?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I've tried multiple times. I think I tried to. Had 2 startup companies that I tried to do with friends that didn't work out along the way. I actually started trying to get into drafting back in the day. I think, well, I can't remember when that was. But I went to IBC for a few classes, got into drafting, and then I forgot why I dropped out for I think I was gonna move, so I ended up dropping out, and because I was like, oh, maybe I can be a drafter, but if you ask me what my dream job is, it's what a couple of my friends do, is like designing cars. I know some people that went to world famous art center in Pasadena, where so many great automotive artists graduated from. I would have loved to do that, but it just, it didn't work out. I have to pay rent. There's no way that I could, dedicate all my, time and energy to going back to school at that point. The draft, when I was looking at drafting, it was part-time school, like night school and things like that. So it was possible. But that's kind of the hardest thing. Yeah, I've thought about going back to school for various things, but it always have to be for part-time schooling and stuff like that. So in the end, whether it didn't work out or I made up some excuse to not do it, in my own discourage myself, that's so nothing like that ever came to fruition.
No, I appreciate you being so honest about that, just because there's definitely somebody out there who's listening who, for whatever reason, thinks that, they didn't go into college, and so it's too late to go back. Or those that graduated just like you from a big university and are not doing anything regarding either their career, their major, but they're happy. That's kind of when we go back to success. Yeah. Success is a broad thing. And for me, it's at the end of the day, are you happy with yourself, with what you do at work? I would say like 90%, because there's always going to be something that you don't like about the gig, and that's just normal. That's just how it is. And the fact that you were trying to do something else on top of that, so you always kept trying to learn something, even though you had a gig here and things of that nature. So throughout this time, you sell that one Integra when you had the S2000. Walk us through that. So you get rid of it because you're like, I need a down payment. So you get rid of that. You're messing with the S2000. Is the S2000 your daily / fun thing, or what is it?
So let's see. At that time, yeah, I think it was my only car for a little bit. So that's when I ended up putting a few miles on it, because I was actually living in Garden Grove, and then commuting to Irvine. So I ended up putting a few miles on it.
Not too bad.
That point. Yeah. And so I think when did I? Yeah. I had it. I drove it daily for maybe like a year and a half. And then, I got the Integra bug again. My buddy was selling his Integra that he had as like a daily. And I was like, oh, shoot, that's really clean. It was a 96 RS. This was a white one. So this is 2 before the red one now. So just so you can keep track.
So bad.
And so I picked that one up. I had the bug to do, I just really wanted to have fun with it. It was super clean is the main thing. So I had fun with that, and
that became the daily in the S2000.
That became the daily. Yeah. Like I did like a JDM front on it. I did like Evo, Regamaster Evos, KW V3s on it. That one was super nice. And then I ended up selling that one because you know what? I needed to buy an engagement ring. So,
oh my god!
yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so then that became that. Like, how long was that? Did you have that?
Yeah, I had that one. I had that one for like 2 years.
Yeah, because you did a lot for it. It looks.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, 2.5 years. Got the engagement ring. Got married. And I think I did I daily the S2000 again? I think I did daily the S2000 again.
You have to.
Yeah. And then whenever it was is when I picked up the 5th Integra, which is the black one, right before the red one. Because again, whenever I go periods without an Integra, Like I really miss it and I really want it. You know, of course, obviously with like social media and stuff, you see all these other cool builds and what everyone else is doing with their cars, and you just get that itch. And you know, mainly because like there's some things that you left on the table that you didn't get to do with your last one, you know? So it's like, oh man, I gotta do that now, you know? I wanna have fun with another one. And I found another one. I found a 2000 Integra GSR on Craigslist, and picked it up in LA, in Burbank area, from a young guy. I got a pretty decent deal on him because he didn't know it was, uh, you know, like it was pretty old, high mileage and stuff, and he rebuilt the motor already and stuff like that. And so, you know, I got a decent deal with it. But long story short, that car was a nightmare because that's the car where I had like a steering shake issue. And I just went through so many. I went through like 3 steering racks, like 4 sets of wheel bearings, 5 sets of brake rotors. I went through different knuckles. I changed engine mounts twice. Everything you can think of, you know, any kind of ball joint, any kind of steering arm, anything related to that could have any kind of change, have something to do with a steering shake on the freeway at high speed. I changed and nothing fixed it. You know, I went through like 3 sets of wheels, multiple sets of tires, just thinking, trying to figure it out. I was throwing parts at it because I would have like minute changes in the shaking whenever I changed something, and I would think it fixed it or made it better, but it never ended up fixing it. And finally, I said, you know what, I got to cut my losses short. And so I like it really hit me hard because I got to a certain point where I thought I fixed it. So I was waiting to put my JDM front on. So I was like, oh, I fixed it. I'm going to put my JDM front on now. And I'm going to start proceeding with, like I said, like I told you before, right? I like to fix the problems with the car first, rather before I do the fun stuff. Mm-hmm. So I had like a JDM front on the side that I was waiting to put on because I don't want to put the JDM front on.
I had a side JDM front. I mean, back in the day where you could get them easily, or I mean, that's crazy.
No, yeah, it was no. I mean, you know, I wanted it because I knew I was going to do that on the car. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to install it because once you go JDM front and then you got to paint it, and then at that point, it's kind of mods that you're gonna lose money in the value. Like painting a car, you're not gonna get that money back if you sell it. You know, like stuff like wheels, suspension, I could take it off of the car and then sell the car. But once I do a JDM front and paint it, you know, there's no going back. I can't take that stuff off and try to sell the car and recoup that money. You know, so I knew that once I did that, I'm kind of set with the car. So that's why I waited. So, you know, I thought I fixed the shaking. I put the JDM front on, and it turns out I didn't fix the shaking. And so it really discouraged me. And I was like, what do? I don't want to spend thousands of dollars painting the car if this can't be fixed. So I ended up making the tough decision to cut my losses and sell the car. Sold the car with like a mismatched paint front end, JDM front end. And then, you know, I learned my lesson. I hopped on Craigslist again. This was about 2018.
I learned my lesson. I hopped on Craigslist. Well, hold on, before we go to the other one, was she shaking like at 60 miles an hour or when you were braking?
Yeah, it was like at 60, 80. It was just like a constant reverberation, left and right shaking of the steering wheel. And it was, you know, spoiler alert, it was the chassis.
I was about to say, I think it had probably been at some collision.
Because
it was so slight that the naked eye probably couldn't see it, right?
I mean, it aligned, dude. I ended up, you know, getting the 2-year unlimited alignment at Just Tires down the street at Tustin because I was swapping out. No, I know they're not like a race alignment, you know, it's not like West End alignment or anything like that. But the reason I got that is because I was swapping out parts every weekend. So I was, you know, I would swap out an arm one weekend. I would swap out a wheel bearing the next weekend. I swap out a steering rack the next weekend. So I knew I would want to get, and this was my daily. So I would swap out the part, go grab an alignment at Just Tires, just so it drives straight. You know, don't mess up my tires, and then drive it for the week and see if it shakes. And I repeated that for probably like a year and a half.
Oh, they knew you by first name.
You know, so so you know, obviously I know what I know, and you know, in between then, obviously I got some good alignments too, just to make sure it's not a bad alignment.
Right.
From Just Tires, who you know, but ended up, you know, I took off all the parts off of that and took a gamble and said, you know, let's throw them on a good chassis and no problems.
This chassis then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That
Okay.
red car, that's where we're at. We're at the red car. It was a one owner car. It was a one owner 1996 RS. It was, I knew it once I got in the passenger seat when he picked me up from the airport in Vegas. So I bought a one-way flight to Vegas because there's no clean cars in Southern California. You know, it's too hard to find.
Okay.
So I found it in Vegas, one-way flight there. He was an airline pilot, picked me up at the airport. Once I got in, I was like, oh man, these seats, they felt brand new. I've never sat in an Integra seat that felt that brand new. It was like mint interior, and it was bone stock. And I was like, you know what, this is the car. And this is what I need to get with. The other car had like 7 owners. The black car before had 7 owners and tons of mileage. And I was like, this is the car, one owner car, only 79,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what, I need to start like a blank canvas on this car. And that's what I did. So, and it worked out. I mean, I put all my suspension, my brakes, everything from the black car onto the red car, and it was perfectly fine.
What kind of brakes did you put on?
Oh, I was spoon twin blocks.
Baller.
my goal with the black one was to do like a full spoon build, and that's what also killed me. I wanted to do the whole 9 yards. I wanted to do the seats, the front lip, the hood. You know, I had the steering wheel, and I had some small stuff like the steering wheel, the oil pan, the calipers. I wanted to do the wheels too, but after what I went through with that car, I just couldn't do it. So that's why the red car, because it was so clean, I didn't do a JDM front end on it. I left it as is, you know, just lowered it with wheels and all that stuff, and that became my daily / track car.
You tracked that one a lot, right?
Yeah. So I took that one to Laguna Seca. I took that one to Buttonwillow, to Chuckwalla. Chuckwalla didn't end up so great because that's where I blew my motor. But that was a fun car. Yeah.
And so then what happens to that one?
Oh, so that one I just sold this year. I sold it earlier this year. I didn't plan to sell it. When I got the NSX, I knew I would need to liquidate the S2000 because I just had way too much money into it. But hold on.
So you got the NSX while having the S2000?
Yeah, actually, so I had 3 cars. I had the NSX, the S2000, and the Integra at one time.
Okay, so hold on, because I know I'm getting like so super excited because I'm like, you have the yeah. I remember you blew the engine, and you were doing something to that coupe, and then so walk us through your mindset of like, you have this Integra, and then the bugs start creeping in on the NSX, or did you see something that kind of got your attention and then you started thinking about that? Walk us through that.
So yeah, the Integra was like fully when it had the Type R motor. I ended up throwing a JDM ITR motor into it just because I had never owned a Type R motor before, and I wanted a VTEC engine. So for tracking it, and I threw it in. I blew the motor at Chuckwalla. I still kept the original engine in my garage because it was original. It only had like 85,000 miles on it, on the non-VTEC engine. So I was like, I'm not gonna get rid of this. And lucky I didn't, because I needed to put it back in the car. So I daily drove that car, and it was fine. Still had everything on you know, TE37s, twin block calipers, had Recaro seats. And then my S2000 was done. At this point, you know, I had done everything I wanted to it. I just gotten the carbon top, fresh carbon hood. I clear coated them. Everything was great in life. And then I was like, you know, my eyes started wandering, you know. I was like, NSXs are starting to look great. I've actually been looking at the NSX market since early 2020.
Ooh.
Just to get an idea of the market, so I knew of when a good deal would come up, if that's a good deal or not. You know, I know a good deal when I see one. And so I was just like, you know what, I want to, I'm gonna have to sell the S2000, but I'm not gonna do it until I find an NSX that I like, just to make sure,
Now,
and
was
so
it? Sorry, was it the NSX the only car you didn't consider, like the Type R,
I
or
considered
moving away from the Honda and
yeah. I did consider a 911, like a 997 or like
Oh,
a base 991.
yes.
But for me, again, because I do all the work on my cars myself, and I hate, not only do I do it myself, but I hate paying. One of the reasons I do it by myself is because I hate paying mechanics to do it for me, because they end up charging you more than they need to make a living, but they end up charging you a lot
and half-assing it.
Right, and they can do that too. So the prospects of getting a German car kind of scared me. A lot of, especially with a 991, a lot of electronic related issues, ECU issues. And it's just something, I told myself, if I got one of those cars, I would definitely have to take it to the dealership. I'm not a ASE certified mechanic or anything like that. I'm just a DIY guy, do as much as I can by myself. So I don't have any specialty equipment, things to read ECUs and stuff like that. And, and so, that scared me away from that, and of course, pulling me from the other side is the Honda fanboy side. The only reason NSX wasn't like super, I wasn't super excited is just because they were super expensive at that time. So but in the end, you obviously know which way I went, and I'm happy. So
okay, so then you were about to say shout out to somebody.
Oh yeah. So the reason why one of my biggest dilemmas was selling the S2000 as it was, like, as my baby, perfect in my eyes, and not finding the NSX that I wanted. So not many people know this, but my wife gave me a loan for the NSX, so that I could buy it while owning the S2000.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise I wouldn't have the money, and I would have needed to sell the S2000 first. I'm not big into getting loans and from the bank and stuff like that, and paying interest and stuff like that. So I like to pay all my stuff off. So I would have wanted to sell my S2000 completely first, get all that money in order to put into the NSX. So she was able to front me the money while I make sure I secured the NSX that I wanted, which I did. And then that's when I promptly started to list the S2000, part it out, everything like that, in order to pay her back. So I was able to. The S2000 went quick, dude. I was, I got flamed for listing my car. I don't know if you remember me listing my S2000. I listed my S2000 for like 45,000. As is, because I didn't, I'm perfectly capable of parting it out myself. I can do all the work myself. But I just wanted to see if I can get rid of it in one swoop. And I knew I was gonna get flamed. I've seen numerous people, I've been in S2000 group for 13, 14 years. I've seen multiple people leave and try to sell their car as is and get flamed for the high, selling the car $35, $40, $50, $60,000 asking prices. And I knew it was gonna happen. So I promised myself I was just gonna list it and not comment, not respond to anyone. And I did. Obviously, I got flamed like crazy. And so, but I think that helped me get exposure on the car, because when I did end up parting it out, I parted it out. I mean, a lot of the big ticket items sold within the first 2 or 3 weeks. So I ended up being able to pay my wife back within a couple months.
So
it was really great.
Getting rid of those two Integras, it paid off, because then you got the house, you got the wedding ring. Yeah. Okay. So cool. Maybe I should get rid of something so that my wife can help me out.
Hey, it's a cycle. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, just wait till she tells you something, buddy. It's like, hey, I need this. You're gonna be like, I'll help you out. Okay. So then that was that, and then at the time too, you take the car apart back to stock. with how meticulously you are, and a lot of people in the car community, we know what we're gonna get out of the car. So I'm sure, like you mentioned, the big ticket items went out you take care of them, so they sold pretty quickly.
Mhm.
And then the car sold very quickly. Did the car actually sell very quickly?
Yeah, so the car sold pretty quick. So I ended up parting it out. I think I started the part out in like January or February of this year. Maybe January, late January. I was done parting it out February-ish, March. And I sold it. I didn't even list it for sale. My buddy, a friend of a friend, my friend referred his friend, who came over and said, at that point I was 99% done. I just needed to put on a stock rear bumper, which I had already.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm interested in it. I threw the bumper on, and he picked it up like the next day.
Wow.
So that car went quick, and the S2000 market since then has gone crazy. I mean, that was March, I think, when I sold it, and it's worth more now. I mean, I could have
like
sold
everything
it for more now. Yeah.
Yeah, like everything. Do you have anything from the S2000 that you kept, like something nostalgic?
The steering wheels. So I had like a Spoon and Mugen steering wheel that I kept. So I have them for the NSX. Those are obviously universal. I just had to buy an NSX adapter. But I think that's about it. Yeah, just random other like oil caps and stuff like that I have. That not much stuff is universal, so I didn't want to keep it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's nothing that I really kept for nostalgia reasons.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So the NSX bug starts hitting. What do you do? How long do you look for it? Where did you find this one? I mean, tell us.
This one happened quick because once I got a budget for the NSX, I knew what my budget would be. I made a post on Instagram, a story post, and then my buddy was like, "Hey," he saw that, responded to me. He's like, "Hey, I know of one." He sent me the pictures. And I'm like, "Oh man, are you serious?" Like, he sent me the pictures of this thing. I had the conversion done already on it, and I was like, "Really? Like, that's within my budget?" He's like, "Yeah, it's in your budget." And because it looked like a 2002, 2005 car, He's like, "It's 91. It's got this many miles. It's converted." And I was like, "Okay, that's why it's in my budget. Because it's a 91. It's got 126K." And I was like, "Dude, it's perfect, man, because I wanted to do this conversion anyway. So
okay.
It's perfect for me." And so that was on like a Wednesday evening. I went to go look at it on that Saturday, 3 days later, and ended up buying it that Saturday. So it happened quick.
Wow.
Yeah. Shout out to Jay. He's the man. So
and shout out to the wife.
Like, yeah, and the wife.
She gave me a month. Otherwise, I have to return it. Okay.
Yeah.
So how is it to do the conversion on this one? Is it similar or really different from, like, let's say, a JDM in front Integra?
Yeah, definitely it's easier than the Integra. The Integra, you have to change the core support.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this guy, it's definitely not cheap. It's definitely more expensive, but it's not as involved. Like, you don't have to cut off any core supports or anything like that. It's all the chassis itself is the same. The facelift versus the pre-facelift.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all pretty much just exterior panels. There's some like supporting bars and stuff, bumper supports and stuff like that you have to get from the facelift. But that all that stuff bolts in. So it's all pretty straightforward. All the exterior, the hood, the bumper, it all bolts in the same. So you do have to change the hood. It's the hood, the headlights, and the front bumper. And then the sides, there's side skirts that from 0205. So that's just the conversion. If you want to do the full 0205, there's the side skirts with the door caps. There's the rear valence, the part like right up the lower half of the rear bumper, basically. And there's like a sub spoiler that goes below the normal OEM deck spoiler. It sits on top of it's kind of like a little lip spoiler. It sits on top of your trunk.
How do you like it?
That's pretty much it.
How do you like
it? I love it. Yeah. It's that's been an interesting conversation I've had with a lot of people. Because obviously there's a lot of S2000 and Honda guys in general that have been looking recently to get into NSXs. And what I would say is the S2000, and this seems to be a common a notion within the NSX community. A lot of NSX guys own both cars, NS2000 and NSX. And I can see why. They're very different cars. The S2000, in my eyes, drives a lot better. It's a lot more nimble feeling. It's lighter car. It's a smaller car. And everything just feels more updated. Obviously, so my car's being a 91 doesn't have power steering. So that really affects my perception as well. So maybe my perception wouldn't be as negative if I owned a newer NSX, like an 0205 or something like that. But still, how the longer wheelbase. I think it has longer wheelbase. It's longer dimension for sure. The NSX is longer and heavier than the S2000. It's shorter, but it's longer and heavier. So all of that, like I think the S2000 is definitely, it's more of like a track tool. It's such a sharp driving car, like a go-kart basically. The NSX definitely feels like a GT, a Grand Touring car. There's more room inside. It feels more luxurious. Like I said, it feels bigger when you drive it. So what I do like about the NSX is that obviously the way it sounds. I mean, jumping in, it's my first time owning a mid-engine car, and jumping in, hearing the engine, hearing all the noise basically behind you. And of course, when you have a good exhaust system, it's an amazing sound. And obviously the what I tell everyone is the notoriety of the NSX is just amazing. It's crazy. I had in my eyes a pretty special S2000, but only Honda fans know what all the Mugen parts and stuff is. The other half of the people barely even know what an S2000 is to begin with. There's tons of people that would come up to me before and like, what kind of car is that? They don't know what an S2000 is. NSX, most people in the world know what an NSX is. I've had so many more people. I've had more people compliment me on the car in this year. How long? I haven't even owned the car for a year. And then in like the 13 years of ownership with the S2000, even just like random like 50-year-old dads in an SUV will pull up next to me and be like, "Hey, that's a nice car, man. Those are awesome. Those are worth a lot now. Those are really special cars."
You're like, I know, I pay for it.
So I mean, the notoriety is just, it's a special car for sure. So
dude, I've always said it, man. The NSX, even the S2000, man, like those cars are designed, they're ahead of their time. And the NSX for a 91, like, I mean, you tell me that's a 91, I don't believe you, because the look of it is iconic. It doesn't look like it's age. I mean, it looks like a brand new car right now. And to think that Acura came up with that is like, where do we go wrong? Like, why did you, like, couldn't you continue to make something like that until obviously the brand new one came out? But and the brand new one, I love it. I saw that Jay Leno interview with the people that designed it, and it was pretty interesting to see how much men and women power went into designing the car. But it almost just reminds me of this NSX were ahead of their time, and I think now they're getting that Ferrari type of pricing where the older the Porsches, the older ones are starting to creep up, and now they're getting that recognition like you mentioned, and obviously the prices are going up.
Someone just posted, I think Bring a Trailer to just today posted like a Silverstone 0205 NSX. I think it was something like 12 to 16,000 miles, something in the teens. It sold for 170K.
So let me ask you,
that's nuts.
Bring a Trailer, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, Bring a Trailer, definitely the prices are inflated there. It's only those cars, any car you find to Bring a Trailer, it's only selling that high because it's on Bring a Trailer. On any other platform, it's not, you put it on Craigslist or something, it wouldn't nearly sell that high. But it's the popularity of that site. It's the hype of that site. I can't fault them for it. It's not their fault. But for better, for worse, cars go for a premium there. I think it's fine because people understand. You can't. People aren't throwing Bring a Trailer comps in their faces when you're selling other cars, because people know that there is that premium from Bring a Trailer. So I think right now it's fine. I know there's other auction sites opening up that are trying to copy and so just trying to copy them.
Yeah, imitate. So
competition. Get a piece of that. Get a piece of that pie. So maybe when there's like tons more, 5+ more auction sites, and they're all selling cars at super high premium, maybe that'll affect real world. But I mean, I don't think they're affecting real world pricing that much. Sure, they're affecting it a little bit, but people still understand that there's a difference.
Well, I don't know, man, because I've seen some, Type R's go for very high Bring a Trailer, and then we see the clapped out LS's 6 grand for it. It's like, what do you mean?
No,
like
I know, but true. But the entire, the COVID used car market has been nuts, right? Like I think all of us know that, and I don't think that's not from Bring a Trailer. I wouldn't just say that's from Bring a Trailer. For whatever reason, used cars during COVID has just been shot up, whether it's a minivan, a small SUV, a small two-door car. It's anything. Every used car right now is going for a premium.
That's crazy. So before we go to our next section, do you need to use the restroom, take a break? Go for it.
No, I'm good. Let me reset the light.
Yeah, no problem. Otherwise, you have to jump up and down.
Yeah.
That's good. Going from even though we're still in the Honda/Acura community, going from Integra to S2000 to NSX, I guess, how has it been? Has it been a big transition? Do you see yourself kind of, enjoying more the NSX crowd, or have you even been out with the NSX crowd? I mean, with the whole
pandemic? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've only been out with the NSX crowd once actually, I've only attended one NSX meet so far, and that's like a couple of weeks ago. But I have met a handful of cool NSX guys, local guys, and I'm really enjoying it. The community is really great. It reminds me a lot of the S2000 community when it first started. And so it's just there's a really good camaraderie with the group. So I'm enjoying it so far a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And how's the aftermarket parts for this car? I mean, I know you have. Yeah. So right now you're seeing on TEs, right? But you've already had like what another set of work wheels? Was it works?
It was BBS LM.
Oh, BBS.
They came with the car.
Okay, I saw the car came.
So this car didn't come with pretty much didn't come with any stock parts. So it came with those wheels. But basically, yeah, the parts NSX parts it's a terrible thing to want to modify NSXs in 2021 because the car is so old, and because there's a low production car. A lot of the manufacturers discontinued parts a long time ago. Yeah.
Really?
So I mean, you think about the last NSX was made in 2005, right? So it's been 16 years since then, and I'm sure even before then parts have been discontinued. But like whatever you want something, it's discontinued. Whether you want a cool exhaust system. So there's only like a handful of companies that make new exhaust systems right now, for example. And so it's just really hard finding parts. And so then when you do find them on the used, whether it's on the used market, you really got to jump on it. but it's on an auction site. You got to really pull the trigger quick. And not only that, but it's expensive because people know what they have.
I bet. Yeah, especially
So like
the
some of these exhaust, you know, like an ARC exhaust system, which everyone loves. I didn't understand it until now, but it's a really sought after exhaust system. Like they're selling for, I think, more than they've sold for new, like on Yahoo Auctions Japan and stuff like that. So it's really rough finding parts and buying and modifying this car right now, and OEM parts too. OEM parts especially. It's hard to, so Acura in the United States discontinued a lot of parts, but you can still get them from Japan through Honda. And so you have to import a lot of these parts, and that just adds up on the price too. A lot of these maintenance parts that you just need to keep the car running.
That's weird that they wouldn't. Well, I guess I don't know how many production cars were made and then how many actually exist. And so it's a 91. I mean, because to me, the NSX is like an exotic car. I know a lot of people probably be like, no, it's not. But to me, it's an exotic. And so I would think that Honda would have a little bit more of a, okay, you know, when it comes to these cars, let's, you know, make sure that we still maintain.
Yeah. You know, I think in general, you know, manufacturers try to keep parts in production for about a decade after the last model. So that would have put it at, you know, 2015 when they technically had to provide certain parts. And so ever since, you know, anything produced after that is, you know, basically on the goodwill of Honda, you know, whether they want to keep producing it or not, whether the demand's there. And so, you know, Honda does, you know, you've heard of the Heritage program for like the Supra. Like they're starting to make brand new parts to it, starting to make brand new parts for Supra. Honda announced something like that for NSX, but it's not like, the details are kind of scarce. So I think there's, from what I understand, there's like a full refresh program in Japan only, where you can like basically drop off your NSX and have them, you know, refresh, I don't know, like a bunch of parts, make it like a new NSX. But the bringing back, there's been rumors of like bringing back OEM parts that have been discontinued, like just for the rest of us who don't want to spend, I think it was like 100K for that OEM refresh in Japan. So, you know, obviously there's going to be not that many people that are going to do that. So for the rest of us who just want to buy, refresh, you know, bushings, bearings and all that stuff to keep our cars up, there was rumors that they were going to bring more parts back from the discontinued, but so far I haven't really heard any updates on that. Right now, just parts are just, if there's not fully discontinued, it's like on what they call like back order with no ETA, meaning they'll produce it. They'll produce it when they produce it, when they get around to it. You know, so like parts, if you order some parts like that in Acura in the US, you know, it could take like 6 months to get it.
Oh,
you know?
shoot.
Yeah. So if you're lucky, if they're lucky enough, you're lucky enough for them to still make it. So wow. It's rough, dude. It's rough.
I can only imagine, man. That's crazy. And so then what's the vision for the NSX, man? Because it's so good already.
So yeah, I mean, having that said, like, you know, I've just been trying to maintain it. You know, it had 2 oil leaks. I fixed one of them. So the other oil leaks, rear main seal. So I'm not going to change that until I got to do a clutch.
How has it been working on a mid-engine car? Is it more intimidating than you thought, or how was your mentality going into it?
It's not super fun. I haven't done too much to it so far. I've changed the engine-wise. I've changed the oil pan, which took a long time. It was not fun. It would have been easier if I had a stock header, but I have aftermarket headers. So I had to take a bunch of like subframes off, my headers off, my AC compressor off, just to take my header off in order to get my oil pan off. So that wasn't fun.
Are you driving a Subaru, or are you driving
I know,
what are you driving?
Like the OEM headers are, I think, 2-piece. So, you know, it would have been easier. I could just unbolt the bottom half of the header. But in order to take this 1-piece header off, like I got to take off all that other stuff, and it was a pain.
By an NSX,
so that's all I did to the bottom of the engine. Top of the engine, I recently changed spark plugs, which wasn't fun on my knees from like, you know, hyper stretching your legs and punching over the engine bay.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to doing more work to the top of the engine bay. But that's all I've done to the engine. You know, I've done a lot of suspension work, which is easy enough, you know. But hunching over this engine bay is just terrible. So
Yeah. Well, the car
I think
sits very low.
yeah, it's not bad, but yeah, I mean, access is easy. You know, I can access it easy because it's low, but just like leaning over, you know what I mean by hyperextending it, your legs are fully extended, and when you get back to resting position, like the back of your knees starts hurting.
So when is
So
it K20 going in?
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Dude, I would totally do something like that if I wasn't worried about smog. So, you know, we live in the wonderful land of California where smog is really hard to do. So, you know, like there's companies like Science of Speed that offer engine refresh programs. So they can, you know, Science of Speed, HQ Engineering, I think can rebuild engines. So probably I'll, you know, if it ever comes to it, I'll just refresh the engine. Just so, you know, I can still smog it because I'm just getting too old and there's too many, you know, a lot of the smog hookups are drying up. So I just don't want to, you know, my S2000 was smog legal. So I really don't want to mess around with anything that'll give me problems like that.
Yeah, it definitely gets old if you have to go around and have to find a plug and nothing like just taking it whenever you need to take it and there you go and that's the end of that.
Yeah, like I'm running stock cats. I have a carb legal header and stock cats in right now, so I pass the smog.
So you're good with the power right now?
Yeah, I'm good at the power. Like, you know, like we said before, I'm not really a big power guy. So this car having more power and torque than S2000, like I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm actually just really happy with driving around with the sound. The radio isn't that great in here because it's really old. And I could upgrade it. You know, a lot of people upgrade it to a double DIN and get Bluetooth and all that. I find myself like just driving around with the radio off.
Yeah.
I've been driving like that ever since I bought it. And you know, I've done that with S2000. I get in the moods with S2000. I just want to hear the car, but you know, the 4-cylinder doesn't sound quite the same as you know, obviously it's not a V6 or a V8 or V10 or V12. It's just a V6, but it still sounds really great, especially with an exhaust system.
Yeah, it's in the bag. The whole sensation, it's completely different. Yeah. So then, my question to you is this: then, was this the ultimate dream car that you wanted?
I mean, kind of from a Honda perspective, yeah. You know, there's always increments. Like, I could ultimate, you know, Type R NSX or something like that, right? But that's you would need like 250 grand to get one of those. So, you know, below that, you know, just an actual 0205 NSX would have been awesome. Would have got power steering, you know, a six speed with a newer engine. You know, but you know, ultimate car, you know, I would one day like to own a 911 still.
Okay. So it's in the back of your head.
Yeah. But those cars are just insanely priced too. So
everything
it may never happen. So we'll see.
You never know. You never know if the price
you never
is
know.
right. Yeah, if the price is right on the NSX, somebody approaches you, I think you'll be like, well,
right. Yeah. That's a possibility. I mean, if this car keeps going up,
it will.
It could happen. So,
how about the Integra bug? Has it been anywhere in the back of your head or?
So I'm good for now. After what I went through with the last two, Integras, you know, with the black Integra, with the problems that it had, it really took a lot of energy out of me. And then the red Integra, it was really great. I did what I got the Type R bug out of me. I got to experience the Type R engine, which is really awesome. And so I kind of checked a lot of boxes off now, having closed my last Integra chapter. So, you know, the last thing I would want to do is own an Integra Type R or own like a K-swapped Integra. Funny enough, which is what my friend's doing to the red Integra. So he's already put a JDM front end on it and K-swapped it. So, but you know, having that said, like, I don't know if I could go through it all again. And I don't know if I would be able to. The cars are just even harder to find clean now. You know, again, I wouldn't want to go through what I went through with the black car again. So for me to find like a unmolested car, a really clean car that's, you know, low owner count, maybe low mileage. I think it's way harder now. You know, I was lucky to find that red car in 2018-ish. You can't find, I've been looking for Integras for my friends too right now. You can't find, there's no clean Integras out there right now. So I don't even think I'd be able to do it. I don't think I'd want to do it, you know, at this point.
Well, I think there's a new Integra coming out. Does that even like grab your attention or makes you think, or?
I mean, it doesn't grab my attention in the respect that I would, you know, be interested in buying one probably. But just because, you know, if I were interested in another car, there's other reasons, you know, I'd want a smaller car with more utility or something like that. Or a bigger car or something like that. I kind of want like a Honda Fit next time just because of the compactness, but the utility.
They're great. Great looking cars.
Right. But I mean, I don't know. The new Integra, I mean, who knows how it's gonna go? You know, like what power it's gonna have. Is it gonna be front wheel drive again? Is it gonna be 2-door or 4-door? Is it gonna have a manual? Like all those questions are up in the air. So you know, it might even be a spec that, you know, what if it comes out in automatic only, front wheel drive, but low power? Like it might not be anything that interests me at all. You know, who knows?
You know what? Really, I think they nailed it on the head. I really think that they did an amazing job. I don't know if they actually listened to I'm sure they did. I mean, or the designer that the Datsun Z, Nissan Z.
Yeah.
I think they nailed that car. Especially it's gonna be from my understanding 6-speed, if I'm not mistaken. V6
so.
twin turbo, the iconic rear window in the back. I mean, they nailed it. I mean, whoever designed that car or is working in that team, they knew exactly what you and I, you know, liked about the 240Zs.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the power output, 400 horsepower. I mean, rear wheel drive. You know, it looks pretty decent. I'm not a big fan of the perfectly rectangle front end when you look the grille opening when you look right at it, but overall the rest of it I think it looks pretty great. The interior looks good. They really, Honda, I hope take some notes. But at the same time, you know, like being in the, you know, I've worked in the automotive industry for, you know, like 14 years now. And so I understand also from the business perspective, you know, they're up there trying to compete with Toyota and all the big names and trying to sell in larger quantities. You know, these small sports cars, you know, only it's a niche market, right? So they're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna sell hundreds of thousands of units of those. So you kind of, you know, it just depends on what the business minds are coming, what perspective they're coming at it from. But yeah, I mean, I hope that that Honda and Acura will come out with some good stuff in the future. As a Honda fan, you know, that's all we can hope for.
Yeah, I mean, the NSX that came out, I think, you know, picking me, like I can afford it. I think the only thing I would have wanted would have been like a 6-speed manual. Obviously, the transmissions they come with are amazing, but I think Acura nailed it with the NSX. The new NSX is absolutely gorgeous. So, you know, it just depends on what they want to do. And that I'm not a big Integra type of dude. I guess a JDM Integra front end or maybe the type car would be cool. But I'm not as excited about this new Integra that's coming out. It's almost like the Acura, you know, Type S. Like everybody's like hyped on it. They don't make a manual. That's kind of big, you know, for me.
The only comment I would say is the fact that they're bringing back the Integra nameplate says something, because, you know, obviously it was always the Integra in Japan, but, you know, the 4th gen Integra was the RSX in the United States. So the fact that they're calling it an Integra instead of an RSX, you know, obviously they haven't dropped that naming convention, right? You know, we still have TLX, you know, ILX, MDX, RDX. They haven't given us any signs that they're bringing back regular names until now. And so the fact that they're bringing back the Integra nameplate, and, you know, says that they're trying to bring back the legend, so to speak, bring back the memories or whatever, whatever it may be of the Integra. I hope they deliver on that. It's similar to bringing back the Supra name, bringing back the NSX even. It means something when you do that. So I hope that they deliver basically, and are not just using the name as a money grab.
Yeah.
Hey, here's this name again. It's nostalgic. Buy it. I hope they actually do the research and build a car worthy of bringing back that name.
Funny you say that, because that's kind of how I felt about the Supra. I'm not a big fan of the Supra. I mean, white body should have looked great, but I'm not a big fan of the Supra. And then when you find out all these different companies worked on it, for me on a personal level, it almost felt like it wasn't that true nostalgic Toyota build.
Yeah.
Because then you had all these different companies now, which is not a bad thing. I mean, they know why they did it. Maybe like you mentioned, cost effective, or
right.
They want to try something different. But I feel like again, the Nissan Z, like, is coming out and you see it and you're like, okay, cool, it looks, it brings you back to the nostalgic.
That's a real successor.
I mean, yeah, like 400 horsepower sounds great. I mean, I would have taken it with 300 horsepower. I mean, longest is still like Toyota base.
Right. I think that's, I've talked about that with a bunch of friends, and I've driven the new Supra. It's a great car. It's a great car in its own right. My only issue is the name. I do think that it was a money grab. To call it the Supra. I mean, yeah, it's a turbo. It's a straight six rear wheel drive 2-door coupe.
It's got the look.
It checks some boxes of the original Supra of Supras in the past, but it doesn't. Just the fact that it's developed by BMW mainly, I think really rubs people the wrong way. If they had just called it, something else completely, it would be perfectly fine. It would have been a great name your vehicle. It would have been that great vehicle, but it has that stigma just because they tried to call it a Supra, So I think that's probably the only mistake I can see, just because otherwise it's a great car, so.
So, but to finish this podcast, you mentioned something about mistakes. So you also mentioned something about being very smart with money and things of that nature. So, like, what do you say to that youngster, that's barely in high scores in college, and the NSX that's behind you? Like, can you speak a little bit about that regarding, if they're having those, man, like, we live in an instant gratification society jump on it now, otherwise, and that's part of the reason why the prices are going up. People are still buying them, and maybe you bought it cash per se, but other people are not. So, like, can you speak on some of those individuals? Like,
I mean,
on that?
the only thing about that I could say is I can't necessarily speak about NSX in particular or something like that. What I always have told people, because I was raised from my parents to not have debt. Like, my only debt is my house right now. So, especially you mentioned like the Instagram culture, the people that need to people that need to have it now. There's tons of people that get a car and they feel like they need to build it into a showstopper, within the first 6 to 12 months, And I've always told people, there's people that, make excuses for buying certain parts or cheaping out, or the people will hit me up, oh man, it must be nice, or I wish I could afford that part. Like, well, you can, you just need to save up, I built my S2000 over 13 years, and people are trying to accomplish that within 6 months, 12 months. It's like, just take your time, you save up. If you want that part, save up for it. I'll see people that spend $20 here, $50 there, $100 there whether it's a shift knob, lug nuts, or whatever. That's fine if you want, if that's what you want, but you know, that's ultimately stopping you from buying this more expensive part that you could be saving up for. You know, so that's my advice. You know, set your goals. If you really, really want something, and it helps me to, I still live by that too. If I want something expensive, you know, yeah, I have money for this other smaller part, but I gotta, you know, put my blinders on and say, you know, I gotta keep my eyes on the prize and really focus on and save for what I want. So that's what I would just say in general is, you know, debt is not great. You know, if you're paying APR on something, you're just giving away money. You know, unless it's good, you know, good debt like a house where, you know, it's appreciating, especially in Southern California. You know, try to pay off as much as, try not to buy stuff that you can't afford, essentially. You know, sometimes you're gonna have to do that, you know, if you need to. But you know, for most of us, if you're trying to modify a car, that's not essential. You know, you don't want, you can go into debt for like feeding your family, but don't go into debt for buying rims for your car and trying to get the most likes on Instagram. You know, just you know, save up, buy what you want. You know, save up and you'll be able to buy what you want, I should say. And you know, in the end, that's what'll, you know, you'll thank yourself for later, is just, you know, not trying to live above your means, you know, and just trying to don't try to impress others by getting the most parts, you know, quantity over quality, you know, I like to say. But you know, just buy, you know, save your money and be smart about it. Don't just waste your money unnecessarily.
It's crazy that you know, some people would get offended by what you said, and that's the reason why I wanted to touch base on it. I actually agree with you, and the people that watch my videos, they understand that I'm not a big fan of that. And again, you know, big disclaimer: if you are in debt for whatever reason, credit cards or trips or X, Y, or Z, I'm not saying that you're a bad person or anything, but I think there is something to say about that. The car sitting in the garage, it drives different because you don't have that, and that comes with, you know, you could legit be sitting on the 911 right now with a payment.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And I mean, to everybody else, be like, damn, like that's success, and only you would know, like, well, yeah, the payments, you know, 1,100, right. And again, right. and that again, if that's your life way of living, then you know, that's on you. But the reason I brought that up is because obviously I agree with that. I am more of the wait for it, and work and save, because I also do come from that type of mentality where my mom was always like, you don't need to owe anybody, because you know, it just, the stress that you don't think about, it's there. And right. and it's a tricky topic, and so that's why I thank you for being honest and sharing your honest thoughts. But I think that there's a lot to say, that the work that you've had and the patience that you've had has now allowed you to be where you're at with, in my opinion, a supercar, an older supercar, but it's a supercar regardless. And you don't owe it anybody, and that's such a great feeling.
Yeah, and not to sell anyone short, you know, it's like people are less fortunate than others, you know, like growing up in high school, you know, like going back to our beginning of this podcast, you know, yeah, my parents bought me a car. I know I have friends where, you know, they barely got a car their senior year because they had to pay, you know, help pay their family's bills, you know, and obviously that sets you back, you know. So I'm definitely thankful for my upbringing. But at the same time, you know, the rules will apply to anyone for just saving money. You know, we all know we should do it. It's just hard to, you know.
Yeah, but were you always like this, or because I mean, maybe when you were younger, like your relationship with money might be a little bit different. Were you always like this, or did you spend you blew a lot of money on stuff that you're like, oh, that wasn't the smartest thing. And now as you get older, now you're like, okay. They say to be old and wise, you have to be young and dumb. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, I spent tons of $20 bills on bulbs in high school. I spent a lot of money on stupid stuff, but that's also why I got a job early. I got a job where at the age where you needed a work permit. And I've been working ever since until now. I only skipped a year, my freshman year in college. So I've been working ever since then just to pay gas, pay for what I want. Just so yeah. I mean, sure, everyone's made some unwise decisions when they're younger. But yeah, definitely every minute you're alive, every year, you're learning about everything, and I've just learned a lot, dealing with money and dealing with purchases here and there, and looking at other people, looking at your family and what decisions they make. So it all culminates into how I behave and what decisions I make these days. So
that's awesome, man. So again, and that's the reason why I wanted you to be part of this, because we see eye to eye in a lot of different topics. Some that we won't get into, but I definitely appreciate like how you are very outspoken, and I think for the positive things, for justice and things like that. And so when it comes to this money, I didn't know that was your view on things, and it's cool to hear it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, especially with, like I said, like a supercar sitting right behind. So yeah, man, it's been fun, man. It's been really cool.
Appreciate
like just to be able to meet you with the S2000 and to now see the transition. And you never know, maybe in a couple months you're gonna have an Integra, because it seems like a common pattern with you, man. And it creeps up on you. And have you owned a sedan?
Sedan. Sorry.
A sedan. Have you owned one?
Your sound is kind of loud.
Have you owned a sedan, Integra?
Oh no, not a Integra sedan. No, the only sedan I've owned before is like an old 1994 Toyota Corolla, which I inherited from my family.
I love how you didn't talk about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot about that one actually. There's other cars I've owned. Two other cars I've owned that I haven't talked about. But yeah, I mean, the Corolla I inherited from my family. I wanted it because I wanted a daily driver for UCI, because of theft worry of Integra at UCI. And then I inherited a Z from my dad in college.
What kind of Z?
It's a 1990 300ZX non-turbo.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's probably one of my biggest regrets, is letting that car go, because it really meant a lot to my dad. But at that time, it had some engine problems, and I didn't have as much knowledge as I do now, and so I just couldn't fix it. I had the Integra and the S2000 at that time. I think I had the Corolla at that time also. So I had four cars, and I couldn't deal with it. So I ended up selling it. I mean, I sold it. It went cheap because those cars weren't. It was high mileage and it wasn't going for much back then. Now it'd probably go for more now. But I totally regret. If my dad would probably watch this, and I'm sorry that I sold that, Dad. I wish if I could find it today, I would try to buy it back. That's how much that car means to me now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, different stages, man. No money, no skills, maybe no space. I mean, whatever the reason is, it just it sucks, man. But yeah, it sounds like your parents raised a very smart young man, And
thanks.
I'm so glad that you got into the whole bug of mechanics, and so that's pretty fun. And hopefully you're like 70 and still messing with cars.
I don't know, man. Like
with a little Integra.
I got into it from the UCI car club days and working at Greddy, and it just snowballed from there. And I'm reaching to the point, man, where I'm getting old and overweight, and it's like I'm gonna have to start paying someone soon.
Nah, man. Well, thank you for this time. Share your story, share your background, share your build, share some of the vision, and just motivation, man, for everybody. Because it's definitely for me, it's inspiring, and just to hear that, like, it reminds me that we're all at our own pace, and 13 years to build an S2000 now. This amount of patience to get an NSX. It reminds me that, okay, everything, take your time, and it'll eventually come. Stop spending $20 here, $20 there, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks, man. And to everybody else who listened to this podcast this far, I definitely appreciate you guys. As you guys can tell, we didn't just talk about cars, talk about anything and everything else in between. And maybe we'll catch you guys in 6 months when Chris buys another Integra. It will happen. I don't know. It seems like it will happen. The right Integra will come along. So thank you, Chris, man. I definitely appreciate your time.
All right. Hey, thanks, guys. See ya.